NFL Talk with Elite Wages.
Yo, what's happening, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of NFL Talk of Elite Wages. I am Elite Wages, and let's get into NFL Week 11. 7 more weeks of the season left. 11 weeks, It was only a few weeks ago we were all sitting here thinking, I can't wait for this NFL season to start, and now we're nearly finished. So, just before I do get into my plays for this week, I was actually lucky enough to be able to jump onto the Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover podcast with the guys over there, and we had a lot of fun talking about a bit about my story, how I started up doing what I do, talking about sort of why and how I fell in love with NFL and the Green Bay Packers. Also went into a little bit about sort of what I've been doing, how I've been doing it, and towards the end of my time there, they actually do a fourfold challenge, and that's basically a 4-leg parlay, and it consists of a favourite spread, an underdog spread, an over, and an under. So while I was actually recording my segment for their show, and more in particular for this challenge, I actually decided to double down on the picks I made there. And I actually used some of those in this week's episode. So shout out to the lads over there at Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover. Go check them out. Go and give them a listen. I guarantee you'll not regret it. So we'll get into this week's episode. I want to touch on something before I do. As always, throughout this episode, and throughout my picks and breakdowns and all that kind of stuff, I will be using the help of Pine Sports Jackson to help make my selections. So guys, I have an exciting new announcement. I've officially been accepted as an ambassador for Pine Sports, and more particularly for the use of their new AI sports companion buddy, Jackson. Jackson is specifically engineered with Pine's powerful tools to deliver insights that go beyond common public opinion. Jackson taps into gated data sources that give you an edge. Whether you're looking for game predictions, injury updates, or in-depth player analysis, Jackson can deliver in seconds, and it might normally take you hours to research manually. Jackson offers real-time access to news, betting lines, player and team statistics, player prop information, and game schedules. Jackson can analyze historical performances, deliver valuable insights into betting opportunities, including EV picks, arbitrage opportunities, and fantasy projections. As a result of being a brand ambassador for Pine Sports, I've been given a 50% off discount code. If you would like to ride along with the plays myself and Jackson put together, or if you want to try out the research tool for yourself, I 100% recommend it, and I 100% recommend using my code ELITE at the checkout for 50% off. Let's get into the nitty-gritty and NFL Week 11. So first play for this week, it comes in the Colts and the Jets game. Now this is probably, strangely, my game of the week, despite there being a Packers and Bears rivalry game. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But again, back to the Colts and the Jets game. I've actually had this game penciled in on the spread since the lines dropped. I actually pulled the trigger on the money line instead. I think there becomes a time within a season where a money line is the better choice in a game rather than the spread, and I feel like this is that right spot for that kind of thing this week. So the New York Jets, they moved to 3-7 with an absolutely diabolical performance last weekend, losing to the Arizona Cardinals 31-6. Mathematically, the Jets are still alive. However, they were already in a virtual must-win situation against Arizona last week, and just look at how awfully they performed. Nothing they have been able to do makes me believe that they'll raise their level, especially now they're in a literal must-win situation. If they win, they actually technically do still have a very, very slim chance. With a loss, they're pretty much sealed their ticket to Cancun. So I don't think I could back the Jets with any amount of spread right now. Honestly, I might not even back them to beat anyone straight up. With next to no hope and not much left to play for aside from a very high pick in next year's draft, the Jets may not put in a high ceiling effort performance from this point onwards. After all, the Jets are ranked as the 7th worst offense in terms of total yards with under 300 per game. How can we back that kind of team in a must-win situation? My suggestion this week is that we don't. It's not a whole lot better for the Colts. They are sitting at 4-6, which is better, but they still give me a lot more confidence than the Jets. 5 of the Colts' losses have come to opponents with winning records. So they played the Texans twice, the Packers, Vikings, and the Bills. 5 of the Colts' losses have come by 1 possession as well, and they haven't yet lost by more than 10 points. The Colts rank higher in most offensive stats than the Jets. They rank above them in points per game average. They average 20. Total yardage per game with 319. With their run game being their biggest asset and the biggest gap between the two teams as well. Now with a fully healthy Jonathan Taylor leading them to 121 rushing yards on average per game. Defensively, the Colts have been fairly sound. They average 22 points per game allowed, despite a 3-game losing streak. They allowed all 3 of those teams to score over 20 points. I think this is a much more manageable task for Indianapolis. New York has not scored more than 24 points in any game this year, and included their 1-6 stretch. So in the last 7 games, they've put up just 6, 9, 15, and 17 points within those seven games. I'm backing the Colts with a ton of confidence this Sunday. This is a make or break week for both teams. But I'm going to give the slight edge and to the Colts, maybe a little bit more confidence swinging their way, as their chances of making the playoffs are a little bit better than the Jets' chances. So I think they might have a little bit more motivation to go out there and actually try and win this game to try and give themselves the best opportunity to make the playoffs, where the Jets, doesn't matter how hard they try, they probably aren't still going to get in. Another side thing on this, Anthony Richardson has been announced he will start week 11 and from now onwards until the end of the season. I don't know if that's really a good thing or a bad thing. It doesn't really change the outcome of this game, in my opinion. I feel like him or Joe Flacco would have done the same job. Maybe getting Richardson the ball a little bit more in the run game, try and solidify that run for the Colts will be their best option. But we will see. So we're actually going to have 2 plays on this game. We're going to double down on this one. And as one of my great friends, BWA Bets, he calls it the double dip, and that is where we go 1 unit on the spread. So we'll go 1 unit on the Colts plus 4.5, and we're going to go with half a unit on the money line. So half a unit on the Colts money line. You can get the Colts spread 4.5 at odds of 1.9. and the Colts money line at 2.7. So that's a nice odds on both of those. I believe we cash both. I'm not gonna lie. I think the Colts win this game. So now we'll move on to potentially my second game of the week. So I actually know. Well, we'll go to the Packers and Bears. I'll say how it is. It's the Packers and Bears game. And I know while I said on the Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover podcast this week, I mentioned I wouldn't actually be betting on this game due to my uncertainty. But since recording that episode, I've actually changed my opinion a little bit and changed my mind, and I will make a wager on this game. So being a Packers fan, I actually know, obviously, naturally, I know a lot about my team. I know in what areas we struggle, and I know in what areas we thrive. But the more I looked into this game, the more I saw sort of mismatches all over the field. So we'll start off with the hosts, the Chicago Bears. Their offense has been non-existent over the last 3 games. They've scored 3, 9, and 15 points, and they haven't scored a touchdown in the last 23 possessions of the football. Coincidentally, the Bears' only good games this year have come in their wins. They scored 24 or more in all 4 of their wins, but those 4 wins came against 4 teams ranking in the bottom 12 for offense and also in the bottom 10 for defense. The Bears have struggled to help Caleb Williams. They've struggled to keep him on his feet. The Bears' offensive line is in serious trouble. Both starting tackles, Braxton Jones, he is questionable with a knee injury. Darnell Wright with an MCL injury as well. Both questionable for this game. They're already missing key players like Tevin Jenkins, who's out with an ankle, and Briscoe as well with a concussion. So very, very depleted line already. Now you've got 2 extra on top of that who possibly are going to be out for this game. So rookie quarterback Caleb Williams, he's been sacked 9 times in his last game, 38 times in total, which is a league high, which that averages out to 4.5 per game. So they'll now host a team whose defense ranked 13th in pressure rate, and in all honesty, it should spell disaster for Chicago. The Packers' defense has been solid overall, particularly in limiting rushing yards and forcing turnovers. They're the 2 areas that we tend to thrive. The Packers' run defense allows the 10th most yards per game. 10th least. Sorry, I couldn't figure that out then. The Packers' run D allows the 10th least rushing yards per game, and that is led by Rashawn Gary, my boy Rashawn Gary from Michigan. He has a 33% run stop rate, and Slayton as well. He has a 43% run stop rate. Ultimately, that ranks them in the top 10 in run stop percentage. The Packers' D sits just outside the top 10 in 11th for points per game allowed, averaging 21. And a big part of their defensive success is their ability to turn teams over. Again, another area we thrive in, and that's led them to lead the league in takeaways with 19, 10 interceptions and 9 fumble recoveries. The Green Bay Packers are currently ranked in 3rd in total offense, with an average of 390.6 yards per game, which is obviously led by the 3rd best running attack in football. A weak point for Chicago and their defense is run defense, as they allow the 9th most rushing yards per game. The Packers also score the 9th most points per game, averaging 25. They've actually scored 24 or more in 7 of their 9 games. Their average win margin is around 8 points, and for the Bears, their average loss margin is around 10 points. I actually believe this game is going to swing in the direction of the Packers. Their offensive side of the ball is significantly better, in my opinion. All aspects of their defense has been a lot better as well. Obviously, the rivalry has a long history, and the Packers have been they've been known to own the Bears. And as I said on the Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover podcast as well, we're actually in the process of transferring ownership from Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love. The Packers own the Bears, as simple as that, especially under Matt LaFleur as well. He's never lost to the Bears since taking over as head coach. He's 10-0, and obviously that includes 5 games at Soldier Field, so he's 5-0 at Soldier Field, in which Matt's defense hasn't allowed more than 20 points, so they've been very, very solid. The Packers are in a great spot to win this game, especially with the Bears' offensive line in such disarray, and their offense is struggling to score. I give the edge to my Packers this week. All bias goes out the window on this one. I'll happily fade my team if it's necessary. I did last week for the Lions. This week, there's no way I'm fading the Packers, and there's no way I'm backing the Bears. Packers minus 5.5 at odds of 1.85. And speaking of the Lions, I'm back on another Lions game. So I'm going to go to the Lions and the Jaguars game. And when you actually look at some of the numbers in this game, it's actually insane. There's a minus 13.5 spread favouring the Lions. The over-under is only 47. So with a 13.5 spread, you'd expect the total to be sort of, a little bit sort of, tying in with this kind of thing. Aligning is the right word. The Lions team total over is set at 30.5, so I'll keep this breakdown relatively short, if that is possible for me. I do like to waffle on a little bit, but the Lions look great, and the Jaguars suck. How's that? Is that it? No, I'm just playing. Or am I? No, the Lions are the hottest team in the NFL right now. They rank second for points per game average with 31.6. They have hit this number in 4 of the last 6 games as well. 2 of those games they went under, and they were against 2 top teams in the NFL, and the Jaguars just aren't those. The Lions, they're known for being a really good rushing team. They average 147 yards per game, and add in their pass game to that, has them sitting as the 7th best team in total yards per game. The Ravens and the Lions are the joint first teams for most touchdowns per game. They average 4 a game, and if the Lions get into the red zone, they score a touchdown on 63% of plays. The same cannot be said about the Jaguars. They are on the complete opposite end of the rankings. They average 20 points per game, and that floats around the bottom 10. Defense isn't much better either. They rank as the 6th worst team in terms of points per game average, averaging 26 to their opponents. Their run D ranks in the bottom half of the league, and in terms of total yardage, they average the most on average in the NFL. So they are the worst team in terms of total yardage. They average 390 yards allowed. Allowing touchdowns isn't much better. They average 3 per game on average. In the red zone, they also allow a touchdown on 60% of possessions as well. Detroit, they also average the 3rd most takeaways per game, which obviously bodes well for them, as the Jaguars tend to turn the ball over a few times per game. Although the Jaguars have only allowed over 30 points just 3 times this year, they've been pushed relatively close numerous times. In this game, back in a 13.5 spread favouring the Lions is really, really, it's a risk. It doesn't matter what the team is and who they're playing, it's a risk. 2 touchdowns is a huge risk, slightly scary. So I believe backing a team total of 30.5, that appears to be the safer option in my opinion. The offensive firepower for the Lions is going to be too much for the Jaguars defense to handle. The Lions should also gain, they should get a hand from their defense as well, forcing turnovers. And it's going to be Mac Jones' first start for a long time, and we all know that he likes to throw the ball to the team that's not wearing his jersey colour. So I'm going to rock with the Lions team total over 30.5, and I've got that plus money. I've got that plus 100, 2.0 for decimal. So I think that's a nice play this week. Next up, this is one of the plays that I mentioned on the Good Teams Win, Great Teams cover podcast. This was one of the plays I went for on the 4-fold challenge, and it's going to be in the Saints and the Browns game. Originally, well, on the challenge, I had this as an underplay, and I was actually going to take it as an underplay. But then I decided to go in a different direction, different route, and I'm going to go with a player prop instead. It doesn't sort of coincide with the underplay either, so it's sort of 2 plays. I will say it's a lean. I lean the under. It's not an official play though for me. Both of these 2 teams, they've been very, very poor on offense for most of the season, especially more in recent weeks. So the Browns are actually averaging the 4th worst 16 points per game, and the Saints are in the middle of the league. After a solid start, I think they had about 92 points, I think it was, in the first 2 weeks. That has obviously inflated their points per game average slightly. But when you look at sort of more recent games, the last 3 games, say, they're only averaging 16 points themselves as well. So both teams are allowing an average of 24 points per game on average as well. But for me, the best bet in this game lies in the hands of Derek Carr. Derek Carr's passing yard line has been set at 211.5. That's actually a number he's cleared in 4 out of 7 games this season, including back-to-back games where he threw 269, and 236. His deep ball ability, and his ability to throw the deep ball to his new deep threat receiver in Marquez Valdes-Scantling, that should help him comfortably clear this line. I think he threw a 69-yard ball last week to MVS, so if you can get a few of those, we're looking pretty in this one. The Saints O-line has been a concern throughout the season, but despite their struggles, Carr's actually been able to avoid getting sacked. He's only actually suffered 6 sacks all season, which is really, really good considering his O-line hasn't been solid. Last week he only faced 7 pressures and he didn't get sacked once, so maybe the O-line is on the up and up a little bit, but they do have a tough task this week. So as for the Browns, their defense has been solid, especially in pass defense area, and obviously none of them than Myles Garrett. He's consistently putting pressure to the quarterback. Despite his dominance, the Browns defense allowed Justin Herbert 282 passing yards last week. Lamar Jackson 289 the week before. Jalen Hurts 264 a few weeks before, and so on. So that actually means in the last 5 games they've allowed an average of 250 passing yards. With both teams' recent struggles on offense, potentially the Saints may have this down as a winnable game. Both teams are starting to get into that area where they need to win games. I believe the Saints will have this one as a winnable game, and Derek Carr, he's showcased his passing ability recently. I'm going to back him to continue to throw for over 211.5. So let's go with 1 unit for Derek Carr over 211.5 at odds of 1.9.
Fantasy football.
So let's take a little break into my plays for NFL Week 11, and we'll get into my fantasy football selections. So those of you that are new here and that aren't regulars, this is the part of the episode where I break down some players that I like to select for my fantasy football team. So recently I've partnered with a fantasy football app called Fantasy Game Day app. That app is available to all UK players. Obviously you can use these selections for your other DFS websites and things like that, but for me, I use Fantasy Game Day app, and the whole point of this app, if you've never used it before, it's just like any other DFS fantasy football app, but it is the biggest in the UK right now. So it allows you to become the manager, the GM, the head coach, whatever you want to call it, of your own team. You get to pick a quarterback, running backs, wide receiver, tight ends. You get a flex position as well, and you get a captain slot. For this captain slot, they will account for double points. So whoever you put in there will get double points. So you want to ideally put in your best option in that slot to gain you double. I also like to add into this segment, obviously my captain pick, who I'm going to pick this week for captain, and a value selection as well. So for my value selection, I like it to be sort of way under the average amount for the price of the players. So the average price is around 5,000. I like to get it around 2,000 and 3,000 to keep that under, and in doing so, that will allow you to save up that extra cash to get those all important pricey players as well. And obviously the player that I pick for value, he tends to have an upside within sort of the matchup or previous results and things like that. So the 2 players I'm going to pick are as follows. So I'm actually going to go with a bit of a risky for my captain pick. I'm going to go with Detroit Lions running back Jahmyr Gibbs. He's going to cost 6,800. Obviously within the Detroit team, they've got 2 absolute beasts of running backs, so it's always difficult to pick one of these 2 in fantasy, because I can guarantee I'll pick one and the other will go off. So Gibbs is actually starting to heat up. He's now hit the century mark in 3 of his last 4 games. He currently sits in 7th for most rushing yards in the league, averaging 80 per game. He's now overtaken David Montgomery as the more productive running back in Detroit. Obviously, like I said, selecting either one of these guys for fantasy is really tough, because both play near enough 50-50. But as of late, Gibbs has been a lot more consistent recently. I expect that to continue in this game. We know Jahmyr Gibbs is a solid running back. He's also a really good option out of the backfield in the passing game too. He only averages 22 yards per game, but he is targeted a few times per game as well. But he is normally successful within those catches. Both Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, they actually have 8 touchdowns each. But I believe Gibbs has the upper hand this week, as the Jaguars average 46 receiving yards on average to the running back position. Obviously, with Jahmyr Gibbs being the sort of the more useful back in the pass game, he should see a little bit more of those passing attempts. I'm predicting Jameer Gibbs will get, around 100 scrimmage yards again, but I actually think he'll be able to punch in a touchdown for us this week as well. So I'm hoping he continues the trend of me suggesting a 40-plus point player for my captain selection in fantasy football. And we're going to go to my value option next as well. I'm going to go with, this one sounds a little bit risky. I'm going to go with New England Patriots wide receiver Douglas, and he's going to cost $3,400. So my value option this week is going to be a bet of mine too. So I'm actually going to break down my betting side for Douglas. And hopefully that can convince you as well to be able to take him as a value option in fantasy too. So take a listen to this one, listen carefully, and this is sort of why I'm taking this particular bet and why I'm going to take him in fantasy this week as well. So the New England Patriots take on the LA Rams this week, and this game looks as if it's going to be another tough game for the Patriots. Let's be honest, every game is tough for the Patriots. They've struggled mightily on offense this season, averaging a second lowest 16 points per game. Defense has been their best attribute, but still not the best. They allow teams 22 points per game on average as well, and they've only won 3 games on the year, with last week's win being their only convincing win. I think it was 19-3 against the Bears. The LA Rams, they've also struggled this year, but have managed to grind out 4 wins. Their struggles were down to being depleted in a few areas. Wide receiver was one, Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp both out simultaneously. But now they are back to full strength. The play I'm going to be focusing on in this game, like I said, was with the New England Patriots wide receiver 1, Douglas. So despite the Patriots being very poor this year, there have been a few bright sparks within their team. Stevenson has been one of those, and Douglas is another one. Douglas has been the Patriots' most productive receiver. He has 18% of team targets and he has a 78% catch rate. Douglas is averaging 3.9 receptions per game on 5.3 targets per game. His reception line for this game is at 3.5 and it's at plus money, so it's at plus 120 as well. So at that, I'm willing to take a shot. He's hit this line in 50% of games this season, but there has been instances where he's seen a ton of extra targets, and there's been 4 games within this year that he's seen 9 targets in those games. Douglas, he'll have a tough matchup this week, don't get me wrong. The Rams secondary, who's ranked in the top half of the league, but I think the Patriots will be down most of the game, so the passing game will be open for Drake May, and I expect him to target his wide receiver 1 fairly often, and Douglas to make the most of his opportunities. So my bet for this one is Douglas over 3.5 receptions at plus 120, which is 2.2. Nice plus money play, and he's also going to be my value option this week as well. Let me just have a look quickly. His averaging in fantasy. Let's have a look. He's down here somewhere. Douglas there. He's averaging 8.15 fantasy points per game, and his opposition rank is 29. So, he's got a tough matchup, but if he can get sort of around 8, maybe even get a touchdown this week, never know. That'll be nice for the value pick in fantasy. And if he gets 4 receptions, obviously that's 4 points as well. So let's hope he cashes both for us this week. The next game I'm going to go to is probably it's going to have a lot of eyes on this game. Let's be honest, this is going to be a lot of people's game of the week. It's the Bills versus the Chiefs game. So obviously we all know about the Bills and we all know about the Chiefs. This to me is a must-win game for both teams. The Chiefs are edging closer to a perfect unbeaten season, and if they can navigate the Bills this week, they'll be extremely confident in being able to achieve this feat. As for the Bills, they will be backed by every other team in the NFL to try and derail the Chiefs from achieving this. I believe the play I've chosen in this game is a fairly simple play. Points are going to be a necessity. This means taking points wherever possible. luckily for me, I could potentially target either team for this, because obviously both teams are going to want to go for the win for two completely different reasons, but eventually both teams are going to want to win this game. But I've decided to go for the Buffalo Bills, and I'm going to go for their kicker, Tyler Bass. So Tyler Bass and Buckner, they're both tied in 6th place for most kicker points this year. But the reason I'm going for the Bills is fairly simple. I actually expect the Bills to win this game. Scoring points as much as possible is, obviously, like I said, it's a necessity. So this will include using the leg of Bass. Bass is kicking 85% of the season, but he has kicked 100% in his last 4 games. On the season, Bass has kicked for 2 or more field goals in 6 out of 10 games, and he's had 2 or more attempts in 9. The Chiefs' defense is obviously one of the best in football, but the Bills also possess a better offense than the Chiefs. So moving downfield into field goal range shouldn't be too much of an issue in this game. Tyler Bass is going to have hit one of his best games of the season to help help the Bills and help the league beat the Chiefs in this one. A little bit of luck wouldn't harm as well. We'd need the Bills to sort of stall inside the Chiefs half to help Bass with some opportunities as well. But I'm fairly confident in Tyler Bass and the Bills to be able to get him into field goal range. So we're going to go Tyler Bass over 1.5 field goals at odds of 1.83. So the next one is another divisional game. I actually touched on this game slightly on the Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover podcast today. It came out today. I used it for one of my selections for the fourfold challenge that they do over there, and it's in the Ravens and Steelers game. And basically, I said I expect this game to go over 48 points due to the potential of both teams being able to score. Obviously, the Steelers possess one of, if not the best defenses in the league. And obviously the Ravens are one of, if not the best offense in the league too. So somewhere someone has to give. The Ravens defense hasn't been too good up to now either. The Steelers are looking more improved on offense as well. The Steelers are averaging 30 points in the last 3 games, and the Ravens 33 in the last 3 weeks as well. Both teams have been able to score as of late, so potential for scoring has been key for both teams so far, especially in recent weeks. As I mentioned, the Ravens are one of the best offensive teams in the league. They have no problems in scoring. They've scored 28 points or more in 8 out of 10 games. As well as that, they're joint top of the league for touchdowns scored with 3.9 on average, which bodes well for their contribution to this over. The Steelers, like I said, they've been able to score a lot more recently as well. They averaged 30 points per game in the last 3. The Ravens have allowed 25 points in 7 of their 10 games this year. The Ravens have been a part of 8 games that went over 48 points, but the Steelers have actually only been a part of 3. But despite only being a part of 3, they've not yet faced a team like the Ravens, and they've actually only faced one team ranked inside the top 10, who was Washington, and that game ended 28-27, which would have cashed the over 48. So I like the potential of a divisional shootout in this game. A win is critical for both teams in this one, in terms of their playoff hopes, their divisional, who's going to win the division, and obviously their seeding as well for the playoffs if they do get in. So I'm quite confident in this one. I'm going to go with the Ravens and Steelers over 48 at odds of 1.9. Now, to finish the week, we're actually going to go over to Monday Night Football.
Monday Night Football.
So, pre-season, I think a lot of people would have had this game circled as a must-watch game, potential game of the year as well. It's between the Houston Texans and the Dallas Cowboys. So, 2 explosive teams were supposed to go head-to-head in this game, but neither team has actually really shown up or shown their explosive sides this year. The Dallas Cowboys were already struggling with Dak Prescott, and that's mainly due to their lack of run game, or no run game at all. They rank 31st, averaging 83 yards per game on the ground, which means they've depended on Dak Prescott way too much. As a result of this, he's thrown 8 interceptions to his 11 touchdowns. He's tried to force plays through too much, and that also results in Dak having a 46.8 quarterback rating, and that actually puts him in 26th in the league. So with Dak struggling, that also means the whole offense is struggling. They rank as the 10th worst team for points per game, and they have the 12th lowest total yards per game as well. Now obviously Dak Prescott has had season-ending surgery, so he's being replaced by Cooper Rush, and he will be tasked of making plays for the Dallas team, something that I really don't have hope for. So a few injuries on the defensive side of the ball as well. Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence as well. They've been out for some time, or for a period. That also hasn't helped, and that's caused problems for Dallas as well, as they allow the second most points per game, and they also allow their opponents to move downfield at will, pretty much, allowing the 7th most total yards per game. In their last 4 games, they've allowed 3 of their 4 opponents to score 30 or more, averaging 34.5 points per game. Houston Texans, while the Texans haven't exactly lit up the league this year, like many expected, myself included, they are in a much better position than Dallas, sitting with a 6-4 record. 3 of those losses have actually came against three of the top 10 offenses in the league. Houston, they're middle of the pack for points per game average. They average 22 points per game, but they have scored 22 or more in 7 of their 8 games so far. Joe Mixon, he's proven to be a huge bright spark for this offense, a really nice acquisition this offseason. He's totaled over 100 scrimmage yards per game on average, along with 8 total touchdowns. CJ Stroud obviously isn't playing his best. We all know what he can do when he does play well, and he's likely to have Nico Collins back as well, which is obviously an added boost to this offense. Defensively, the Texans haven't been locked down, but they've done okay. They've allowed 9 out of 10 opponents to score 20 or more. They average 22 points per game. But honestly, I think this is a game where they just dominate. I don't see the Dallas Cowboys scoring 22 points in this game. I think they go way under 22 points. I actually think they struggled to score 14. Cooper Rush looks really bad. He looked bad last year when he came in. He looked bad last week. He completed 13 passes and finished with 45 yards. His longest pass was 10 yards. And that's not the way to win a football game. While the line has been set at minus 7.5, favouring the Texans, they've also had their struggles to score. I do think they win this game, so I'm going to roll with the under. I think that's the best angle for this game. I'm going to roll with the under, even if the Texans do sort of manage to hit their average points of 22. I don't believe the Cowboys will match. I think this game goes way under 42 points, to be honest. I think Texans win this something like 25-10, a big margin. But just in case, we'll roll with the under. So I'm going to go 1 unit on the Texans and Cowboys under 42 at odds of 1.9. So that'll do us for this episode, I think. We'll get wrapped up on this one. I'll just go through all the plays I've placed, just to recap. I have realised I've said a few of the wrong lines, so I will go over those as well, just to reiterate and get the correct lines that I've got. So they're all 1 unit unless I say otherwise. We've got Colts plus 4.5 at odds of 1.9. We've got half a unit on Colts money line at plus 170. Packers minus 4.5 at odds of 1.89. Lions team total over 30.5 at plus 100. Ravens and Steelers over 48 at 1.9. Texans and Cowboys under 42 at 1.9. Derek Carr over 205.5 at odds of 1.9. Douglas over 3.5 receptions at 2.2. Tyler Bass over 1.5 field goals at 1.83. So they're all the plays for this week. I've had a good one this week. Good little episode this week. I feel like I've got a lot of information out there, and I'm feeling very, very confident that we'll go 6 weeks in a row for winners. So, as always, huge shout out to everyone that listened this far, listened to the end. Appreciate everyone for listening. It would be a huge, huge help if everyone could click the link in my bio, go through to my link tree and follow me on all socials. Follow me, like, share, subscribe, all of them. You'll find me on Twitter. I tweet constantly. We've got a Discord that's pretty much 24/7. Myself and Daily College Bets. You would have heard me talk about him a lot on my podcast as well. He is my guy. We run a Discord together, so make sure you get in there for pretty much a 24/7 conversation about any sport, anything, everything. I've got, obviously I'm on all podcast, major podcast streaming sites: Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, YouTube. I'm on Substack as well. I post my write-ups and things on Substack, and TikTok, anywhere and everywhere. So get over there, drop me a like, subscribe, follow. Drop me some questions if you've got any questions about this week or about anything in general, anything I can help with, anything that you like, anything that you disagree with. Let me know in the comments. I'm always open for a bit of a discussion. So yeah, we'll wrap up this one. I'll be back for NFL Week 12 next week, but I'll be back for my recap as well next Wednesday. So I'm going to leave it there, and I'll catch you later.